Alright, where do I start with this one? I love drop D on this guitar though, boy, I'll tell you. Where to begin? Alright, this is a Gibson, sorta. It says Gibson on top, right? Also says custom. So let's talk about it. I wrote this all out in a pretty long-winded description, so I'll try to paraphrase it here so the video doesn't become 20 minutes long. This is a 72 to 74, that's my guess, based on the natural headstock and the serial number, the orange label on the inside. It's a Gibson J45 Deluxe. That's how it started its life. Norland era. Norland came along in '69. They did a lot of weird things to acoustic guitars, the double X braces, etc. Google it, look it up, you read about it, but I'm going to skip over that kind of quickly. I picked this one up about a year ago, and it was rough, and I'll have some pictures in my listing here to show it, but multiple cracks. Top had been sanded down to get all the finish off of it. The original double X bracing had been removed. Two very crude tone bars had been added, but the top was just cracked all across, and I picked it up. I got an okay deal on it. I actually paid a little more than I wish I'd paid, but and I quote, fixed it up. It had a neck reset at some point. The fretboard extension had been chopped off at the 14th. Some of the cracks had been cleated, some hadn't been. It was missing some wood underneath the bridge itself. Bridge plate was original, great big, ginormous, like 3/8 inch thick plywood bridge plate. It was a rescue dog and needed some work. And I patched it up. I put about 12 cleats in the top. I rebraced it completely. I removed the broken truss rod and installed a two-way truss rod inside. I refretted the original fretboard, including that with that broken cutoff spot here, so that 14th fret had kind of a divot. And then I sprayed kind of an old 30s finish on it. And it was a nice player. It had a good sound. It was really deep lows because the top was so thin, probably from the finish being removed, but also there are legends of Gibson during their double X era trying out some really thin tops, like .090, under a 10th inch thick, to see if they could resurrect some sound out of that double X. Problem was, even with the double X bracing, they still just cracked so much. So anyway, long story short, sold it. Guy loved it, had it for about 9 months, and then it developed a couple new cracks. He took it to a local luthier. Luthier said, it's just not enough meat. There's no wood there. You can keep chasing after bad, putting more cleats in, but it's just too thin. And, I couldn't argue with that. And so he was a very nice guy. And Jim, if you're watching this, you know who you are. So I bought it back from him. And he asked me if I wanted to retop it. I don't really take in outside work. I just do my own projects. So I said, tell you what, why don't I buy it back? I'll give you first crack at it. If you're interested, great. If not, I'll put it on the market and sell it. So this is what I've done with it. This is the end result. Now, it's still got, all the original patina from old work done on the sides and back, etc. The neck, we'll talk about that in a minute. But I've got a good stash of matching topped, book-matched Sitka spruce that I picked up from a guy here in Maine. He bought it from Nazareth, from Martin, back in the 80s, and then it sat in his storage shed for years and years and years. And I bought about 10 tops from him, and I have done some wonderful stuff with it. This one that I built myself has got it, this has it, this has it. I've got 3 of my own builds, and I've done, I retopped Martin D35 with it as well. Really nice wood. And so I picked a set that I thought was kind of cool looking because it's got some book-matched bear claw. It's got kind of some interesting grain. I mean, you can see the matching grain stripe here matches the other side, but the bear claw is really cool. And boy, when the light hits it a certain way, you really get this, I think they call it medullary rays, and it looks really cool. So anyway, this is 40-year-old spruce. It's got all brand new bracing in there. So a standard forward shifted Martin style, which is, Gibson and Martin, their X's, it's 89 or 98. Which is it? I get this backwards with my non-dyslexic. It's from a template I've got. So the X bracing is a standard X for a dreadnought. Forward shifted so that the X line itself is only about an inch and an eighth back from the sound hole. It's got a hard rock main maple bridge plate underneath, very small one, kind of like a Banner era J45. It's got 2 tone bars. It's got finger braces on the side. It's got 1 transverse brace right above the sound hole. And that's got a notch cut out of it because the new truss rod is sound hole access like a Martin. So see where I'm getting with this. This is a Gibson, but I'm going to call this one Marty McFly from now on. McFly sort of for McFarlane, my name, but Marty for the Martin aspect. The Martin Nazareth Sitka Spruce, very similar X bracing to an HD28 or HD35. So the top's been completely redone. I decided to bling it up kind of nice. It's got an abalone rosette with some black sound hole ring right outside of the abalone. It is a slightly oversized bridge. I had carved that when I did the original repair because the original one had been sanded down, and I went just a hair bigger for that one because I was covering up, the old footprint. With this, I don't think it looks large, so I went ahead and used the same bridge that I had before, and that is Madagascar rosewood. On to the neck. Originally, when I took this neck off, it had had a neck reset done before. The mortise and tenon portion of the dovetail was kind of rough shape, and they're kind of a weird one. It's not an angled actual dovetail. It's a straight walled tenon, but triangular shape. So it does slide down in like a dovetail. It's not a straight mortise and tenon on and off, but there's nothing pulling it into the body. And so what I did, this guy named William Compiano, and I've read his book on building, and he does a style where you put barrel bolts in this way across the tenon, and then you use 1/4 inch Allen headed bolts that go through the neck block, and they give it something to bite into. I don't like the threaded inserts when I'm doing bolt-on necks because they're hard to get in there, but by putting this one in, the barrel bolts have the threading on the side of the round part of the barrel, and they go through the tenon, so you've really got something to pull on. And, you can't pull it too tight, you'll break that tenon off, but I've got them reinforced along the side with veneer strips, so it really holds that tenon tight. So that's what holds this on. Now, obviously, the fretboard is glued on, so once it's on, it's in place, but to remove it, all you gotta do is heat the fretboard, get the glue loose, and then you just loosen up the bolts, and so it's easy to do neck resets. While I had this all apart, I just never really liked the feel of this neck. It was really, really skinny, kind of early 70s. They were going for that thin feeling. It was barely 1 inch and 11/16 inch wide, as well as being very narrow from the back to the fretboard. So what I did is I added, you can see this line right here, I added a thin strip that's not quite 1/4 inch, but close to it, of Honduran mahogany that I had left over from another neck I'd carved. And I laid that on top of the fretboard and on top of the truss rod before I put a brand new fretboard on it. So this has some beef to it now. This thing feels like my 1933 LOO. It is just shy of 1 inch, really, at the first fret. It's like 0.097 or something to the fretboard. And I've carved that into, I don't know if it's easy to see it in the video, but yeah, you can kind of see the angle there. It's kind of a soft V profile, so it really feels like that old LOO of mine right now, or like a 40s Banner era Gibson. Sorry, this video is going to be long, but that's just the way it is. After that, I put a brand new fretboard on top. This is Indian rosewood because I just didn't like the way that thing was cut at the 14. And just to dress it up nice, I put a little scroll work on the end, and it is bound with celluloid grained ivory binding, just like the body. So it's got that scroll on the end. It's kind of like, I've got a 1922 L4, and I kind of went with that look. I think it just kind of dresses it up pretty. The whole body itself is also rebound with that celluloid grained ivory binding, so it's got a nice little grain pattern to it. And then the top, I've got a black, white, black strip of purfling all around the edges. So that's all been put back together. Now the back and sides retain their original patina. It's all been wiped down with True Oil, probably about 20 coats of True Oil. And I'm going to buff this up on my buffer once it cures for like another week or so. But it did have one pretty significant crack. Let's see, it's on the treble side, right over here. I fixed that the last time around during the first resto. So that's got mahogany veneer running the length of the crack on the inside. It's glued solid. It's stayed together perfectly well throughout this entire process. Brand new gold frets. They're medium/higher StewMax, so they're kind of like jumbos. Got a brand new bone saddle. This is a Maine moose antler nut. And the hardness of mature moose antler is the same as cow bone, so just kind of my little touch. It's got Grover Imperial tuners, smooth as silk. They absolutely work beautifully. And I chained a truss rod cover saying custom, because this thing is pretty much custom now. Like I say, this is Marty McFly Gibson, the 45th. Junior the 45th for J45. I don't know. Anyway, got deep lows. Now the nut is now 1.79 inches across. So it's very comfortable even fingerstyle. Coming up on Thanksgiving. But I'll tell you what it really shines at is just, belting out. Just good old rhythm, and for some reason, different guitars I pick up, it makes me want to learn something and play something. So, I don't know, a 70's Gibson seems like a...
Make me a wealthy soul. Tell you those are the memories. Make me a wealthy. With the wisdom of an old
sorry, this is the longest video I've done in a while, but we had a lot to talk about. So this is, again, 72 to 74, Gibson J45 Deluxe. Maybe it's a J50 now, I don't know. I'm going to call it Marty McFly for the Martin top, McFly for me, Gibson Junior, the 50th for the J50 look. I don't know. Here it is. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through 16 minutes of video and my horrible singing on this beautiful rainy Saturday morning, well, then I owe you a beer. But